Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called Why Don't the Dutch Wear Helmets? Okay, so I've asked this question myself so many times. I really do not understand why, because I think obviously they're constantly riding around bikes, but I don't think I've ever seen a Dutch person wearing a helmet. But also I know they're very sort of careful and they're very sort of all by the rules. So it surprises me that if they're so sort of correct and, you know, on the narrow, then how come they're not wearing helmets? Isn't that dangerous? But okay, I can't wait to find out. Let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
To the Netherlands, I noticed an interesting trend. Practically no cyclists here wear helmets. And I found that to be a bit odd coming from the States where almost everybody wears helmets, or it's definitely highly encouraged. And so I asked a lot of people and I got all sorts of different responses. It's at a particularly interesting time for me because I'm coming from the States, having 2 bike shops, and the National Transportation Safety Board just recommended that all states implement helmet laws. So here you see really young kids, you see kids traveling on bikes with parents. None of them really wear helmets, and
that kid's way too small for that bike.
That they don't really see helmets as a protector against the more dangerous things of cycling. One of the most dangerous things when cycling is getting hit by an automobile. And in the States, we really don't have that much protection against that. Bike lanes and really protected infrastructure is one of the best defenses. One of the things that I heard, which is quite interesting, that there might be a slight decrease in the potential to be injured by wearing a helmet on an individual basis, but on an overall basis for the whole community, it actually decreases the potential of being injured on a pretty significant factor. They don't feel like, oh, well, we have this level of protection, this kind of, from my perspective, some level of false sense of security. Many people might end up becoming more aggressive as a result. And I think that cars end up respecting cyclists because of that as well. You find that cars understand that, yeah, this is a fragile human being. You know, they don't have the same level of protection that I have in this automobile. So I asked my friend Henning to give some comments on this. He's lived here for quite some time, and I think that he can give a good perspective on this, but it's by no means the whole picture, and I'd love to hear from you what you might think on this topic or what your experience is here.
In Holland, we don't think about wearing a helmet when going out on a commute, getting from A to B. It's just a no-brainer. We just get our bikes and we hop on the bike and we take off like 1 million other people in Amsterdam, like 17 million people in the Netherlands. They do the same, and they respect each other on the bicycle. They know, okay, I'm vulnerable and I'm not fighting for that last inch. No, at a certain point, you just give in. One of the biggest possible injuries you can get is being hit by a car.
Yes.
But the chance of being hit by a car in the Netherlands is very little. Just for the simple reason, every car driver in the Netherlands is also a cyclist. They know how to behave. If they take a right turn, they know I have to look over my shoulder because there's cyclists coming along. And they know, okay, how fragile they are.
They know the drill.
And that's one of the main reasons why it's relatively safe to ride a bike, even without a helmet.
I'm wondering if it's also because they're separate in the car lane, while the cars are just separate from the bikes. Maybe that also influences this.
A helmet is not preventing you from getting injuries, and maybe even gives you a wrong idea of safety. If you're not wearing a helmet, you already know that, okay, if I crash into a car or if I just take a curb too fast and I tip over and crash, then okay, I'm not protected. So if I'm not wearing a helmet, my driving is already less risky. Everybody knows, okay, if I'm riding like an idiot, the chances I knock someone else over and myself is very high. So they're used to anticipate, and what they do is eye contacting. They're eyeballing each other when just riding, okay, he's not moving, okay, then I'll move. Yeah. If he gets the feeling, okay, he's going to move, then I just keep on driving.
Or if this can happen, is a Mexican standoff and no one's moving, you're moving, I'm moving, And
it works simple like that. Because you will see 99% of all the road cyclists, all dressed up in Lycra, going 35 kilometers an hour, they are wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
Versus an hour later, when they come up out of the shower and they want to meet with a friend in a bar, they cycle 2 kilometers on their beat up grandmother's bike into city. Nobody wears a helmet. So they know it has to do with speed. If you're going over 20 kilometers an hour on your road bike racing and in a peloton, and there's a high risk of falling and then injuring your head, so everybody wears a helmet. But in daily life, you just commute. Everybody does it at a certain pace.
Different.
And if you observe people riding in Amsterdam, you see, okay, it's kind of hectic. At the same time, it has a certain flow. You have slower bicyclists, you have faster bicyclists, and they all mingle, and it works. It is
Yeah, it works for
one
them.
connected massa riding a bicycle, and they communicate non-verbally, and this works.
He's like, I can't finish the video. Okay, yeah, this I think it's a very interesting perspective, obviously coming from from a Dutch person, obviously explaining the whole thing. I think obviously I get the reasons and I get the reasoning. I think still it's something that is really I think it's a matter of getting used to this, but I think obviously it's coming from an outsider's perspective. It's going to be very different from someone that obviously has lives there, is Dutch, and probably has ridden a bike his whole life. I think it's really a matter of that, because obviously for them it's not weird just because kids ride their bikes since always, and they're not used to this. I think the concept of I'm going to wear a helmet. But I think the most important, part about this whole thing, there's two things. I think those are two key things that I don't think can happen anywhere else. Is that the thing he mentioned, because I know that in the Netherlands, everyone's a cyclist. So even like he mentioned, even if you are, you're riding your car, you're driving your car, you you also ride a bicycle. It's not as if I'm only I think that's the main difference between that and other places, because in other places, if someone's a cyclist, I mean not always, but I would gather that most times people that sort of are cyclists are just cyclists, and they don't really own cars, so they don't really use their cars. And people that use their cars are not usually people that are also, I'm gonna drive my bicycle. So they're not cyclists, they're just drivers. And I think that's the main difference, because in Amsterdam and the Netherlands, everyone's both. So even, sometimes you're behind the wheel of a car, sometimes you're behind the handles of a bicycle. But I think that gives you a different perspective, just because obviously you know how it is to be in the other person's position. You know how it is if you're in your car, you know how it is. I know how sort of vulnerable I think you feel when you're in your bike. And I'm not saying this as it's dangerous. No, but I think I'm vulnerable in the feeling of you're sort of uncovered. You're not protected by something. It's just it's you and the wind, and it's you and life. So I think how it feels, and you're not in your little booth, and you're not in your little car. So of course you're probably going to be more careful, and there's probably going to be a little bit more empathy, because I know how it feels when you're on the opposite side of this. And I think that's probably the main difference. And also I think honestly it's a systematic thing, because even though he doesn't really mention this, I really do believe that's also gotta influence this. It's again, I think in the Netherlands, from what I've seen, you have your bicycle lanes are very separate from the cars. I think not always. Sometimes, obviously, you're seeing, the cars are running parallel to this, but there are some, and I think either when you're commuting or when you're going somewhere, I think there are certain places in which, the bikes are only going to go here, and if you have a car, you're going on another sort of avenue, in another street. There are no bicycles there, and vice versa. If you're in your bicycle, you're not going to encounter any cars in this particular part of the road. So I think that makes a difference, because you're kind of keeping them separate, and obviously that's going to reduce the risk of accidents. And of course, I do believe what he said also about people just being more careful, because they obviously they follow the law, they follow the rules. But I think there's probably a more conscious, I think, and that's really, I guess that's just because again they're used to doing this since they're kids, and it's probably taught because obviously you're a kid and it's something that's really ingrained in people about being careful. And you have to know when there's a time and place for everything. And like he mentioned, if you are, oh, I have my bike and I have it for sport, I want to go because I want to work out, so I'm going my bike and I'm going, I'm cycling, for, it's speed cycling or whatever it is, or I'm going my mountain bike, or I think mountain bikes are different, are used in a different context, but whatever. If it's you, because I'm doing this to work out, obviously I want to go faster. So, I am in the position of, oh, this is what I'm doing right now. So I have to wear my helmet, and yes, because I'm going to go faster, it's going to increase the danger, because that's just a thing. It's just as in a car. That doesn't mean that it's dangerous to the level of I can't really use this, I can't do this. No, but you have to be more careful, obviously, because obviously speed, physics is a thing. So whether that is by car or by bicycle, if you're going faster, the risks of getting into an accident and having an accident are just going to increase, and you have to be aware of the risks. That's all. And that's what probably, I'm going to wear a bike, I'm going to wear a helmet. And because again, I think my mindset, it's more about I'm working out. But if you are, like he said, you're commuting if I'm commuting, which is, you're going on different sort of roads, because obviously if you're cycling for sport, you're not going to go into the main streets, as in where everyone's sort of commuting normally and peacefully, as in, it's the equivalent, I would assume, of going, in a highway. When you're in a highway, you're obviously the speed limit, and when you're in a car, the speed limit's going to be higher because it's a highway. So of course you're going to go faster. But if it's a residential street or just avenues or just streets in general, of course you're not going to be speeding, like a crazy person, because no, that's simply not done. So I think that's obviously it's going to be the same, well, not the same, but similar. As in, yes, of course, if you're commuting, well, your mindset is going to be different. So it's just, I'm not wearing a helmet, but I'm also going slower. I'm also, you always have to be careful with other cyclists and with cars and stuff. But again, your mindset is a little bit different. And I think obviously that's really important. I also like the idea of sort of communicating with the other person, whether that is the driver or the cyclist. Obviously, you're not communicating as in I'm stopping traffic to talk to them, but it's more about, visual cues. Probably they use their hands, you can pass or, stop, I don't know, whatever it is. And I like that. It's communication. That's a good thing. Communication, I think, also reduces the risks of accidents, because people are having, you're on the same page. If I'm communicating to you what I'm doing, or you're communicating to me what you're going to do, I can take precautions, I can know what to do. So obviously that's very important as well. But I like the idea of that. I hadn't thought of this, but I think it makes a lot of sense, actually. It's the sense of false security, I think, that the helmet gives you, because if you're wearing a helmet, you're probably thinking, oh yeah, I'm invincible. I'm wearing my helmet, so nothing bad can happen because I'm wearing my helmet. So I'm gonna go, I don't know, 50 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour, because the helmet is going to be protected. I'm going to be protected. But of course, that's really not a thing. Yes, you're wearing a helmet, but you're not indestructible. It's good. It's good to take precautions, but still, if you have an accident, and I think it's not always hitting, oh, I got hit by a car. Sometimes you can fall. I mean, that's the thing that happens as well. When you're riding a bike, you can fall as well. And always it's the same. I don't know if it's more dangerous or less dangerous or less riskier than getting hit by a car. Because if you hit your head on the pavement and you're going really fast, it's gonna be just equally as dangerous as if a car hits you. And probably, I know it's the same, because you're hitting your head on the pavement. So yeah, you can crack your head, but I think, ultimately, I really do believe that it's true. I hadn't thought of this, because obviously when you're wearing a helmet, you're sort of thinking, oh, I'm protected. But yeah, you still need to be careful. I think a lot of people maybe get the sense of false security of I'm protected for everything, because yes, I'm wearing my helmet. But it's not really, because it's going to keep you safe, I think, in certain sort of situations. That I think that makes you less aware, and maybe less sort of aware of the environment in general, because you're thinking, I'm fine, it's fine. And no, you still have to be careful. You have to pay attention to other cyclists. You still have to pay attention to the cars, pedestrians and stuff, because I think it's not about safety only for you. It's also, I think, it's safe for pedestrians, because if it's you against the car, well, yeah, of course the car probably is going to win. Not that it's a battle, but I'm thinking about impacts and stuff like that. But I think you as the cyclist, you also have to be aware that you can also run someone over with your bike, and obviously that's dangerous for them as well because they're pedestrians. They're not wearing helmets. They're not wearing anything. So I do believe. Well, yes, I hadn't thought of it. The whole sort of false security that can give you. Although I don't know. I think honestly it works for them. So there's something right that they're doing. I don't know if it would work some places. I'm not telling people, oh yeah, if you're riding your bicycle, if you're driving you're riding your bicycle, do not wear a helmet. No, probably you probably should, I think, because not every place is like it's like Amsterdam, and not everyone's like the Dutch. Because I think yes, all of those things are really, they're sounding good, but I really do believe there's a cultural component that has come from them. I don't know. I think it's earned. This is what I'm going with it. I think it's earned, the idea of them not wearing helmets. I think it's a thing they've earned throughout being with a lot of cycling culture, and probably being, I know, since people are kids, they've been taught how to ride a bike. And I'm not talking about how to ride a bike in your neighborhood as in, it's for fun, and as in most people do, oh yes, you'll get your bike, and then you sort of you go around the neighborhood, and you sort of, you're riding your bike. But then as you are an adult, you're not using your bicycle because people move to cars. So obviously for them it's different because they have a different type of culture, and that's really, again, all the sort of cyclist sort of rules are ingrained into them. And that's where I think, well, yeah, of course it's going to be different in the Netherlands because they're a cycling country. So I don't know if that would work in other places. So probably wear a helmet in other places, but that doesn't mean that in the future things can change, and maybe they're going to, I don't know, maybe some places are going to realize, no, it's better if they do not wear helmets, which I think it's a crazy thing to say. But again, maybe they can replicate, the Amsterdam and the Dutch model because, usually it works for them. And that was it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.